Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Empower Her podcast. Happy New Year. No, you're not listening to the wrong episode, okay? No jump scare needed here. It is the official start of spring. Well, technically it was last week, but this is the episode we're going to be talking about it. This is the spiritual, astrological new year. And although the weather hasn't caught up 100%, it is nicer today. But I am feeling the spring vibes, okay? It is so nice. I was walking around outside, and while the trees haven't started to get green yet, the flowers have started to bloom. The grass is green and you can smell it. It is absolutely incredible. And I just feel this energetic shift, okay? This energetic shift of the spring energy, the spring vibes. So I am so excited. And this is what I wanted to talk about today. I want to talk about the spring energy. I want to talk about what this looks like and how you can use this to your advantage, whether you're spiritual or not. You can feel it in your body. You can feel it in the environment around you. It is positive. So let's talk about what this looks like. So spring has started. Spring equinox has started, right? And with that comes Aries season. So if you're into astrology, you know that Aries season has started. It started towards the end of March, and Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. I'm an Aries baby. My birthday's coming up. We love Aries. So Aries is the start of the zodiac. So it really is this sort of rebirth, this renewal, this really starting fresh, okay? So let's talk about the few ways that spring equinox kind of brings a shift from a spiritual perspective. So the first thing that happens during the spring equinox is balance and harmony. Okay, this is the time of the year when there is a balance between the amount of light during the day and the amount of dark during the day, right? So it's about half and half at this point, as you'll notice. In the winter, it's a lot of dark, less light. In the summer, it's more light and less dark. Spring is when it's about 50-50, of course, depending on where you are in the world and the exact time of year, right? Because spring is a couple months, but in general, this is where the balance comes. And it really is the balance of that light and dark, not just in terms of the actual weather outside and the sun, but in terms of energy as well, right? This is where we can start to feel the shift towards seeking equilibrium, seeking that balance in our own lives. So when we look at, and I talk about this a lot in terms of energy management, is during the winter time, there's a reason that animals hibernate in the winter time. There is a reason why you may feel more tired, lethargic, you want to rest more in the wintertime. It's because that's natural, right? I just came off of having and I looked at it sort of negatively, and I'm trying not to do that, but I didn't have a super productive couple of months. January, February, and most of March for me was just, I did my basic things that I needed to do at work and at home, the gym, whatever. But I didn't have that extra energy, that creativity, that zest for life that I normally have. And that's totally normal. And I'm telling y'all, the last week or two, my energy has completely shifted. And yes, it has to do with obviously the fact that I can see the sun and it doesn't get dark at 3:45, which is such a nightmare to me in the wintertime. But it also has to do with the fact that it's the spring energy, the spring equinox, the weather's changing, the vibe is changing, everything is changing, and we're starting to feel that balance. We can also look at this as a balance between masculine and feminine energies as well. The way I look at it, it's very interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel winter could be more of that feminine energy with being at home and cooking and being bundled up and all those things. I live in a cold place, so it works for me. And then spring is the balance, and then summer is very masculine, let's go, 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 and sleeping less and going out a lot and, having, fun with friends and all that. So that's very, very interesting. We can also look at this as sort of the balance between our inner and outer world. So I think this has to do a lot too with sort of our our lives in terms of, people we hang out with, people we spend time with, right? Like just as a whole, especially if you live somewhere with 4 seasons like I do, I spend more time with my friends and outside in the spring and the summer than I do in the winter period. Like in the wintertime, you will catch me either not canceling plans, but like not making plans as much, spreading out my plans, being more aware of how I'm feeling versus in the spring, I'm like, yes, let's go, go, go. I'm going to say yes to everything, right? So it's really bringing that balance and harmony in all those areas. Also, we can look at this from like the earth is like the inner and outer world. Like the inner world is like the soil, the grass, like everything inside. And now it's like bringing balance in the outer world, right? The grass is coming and it's turning green and the flowers are blooming. It's coming out to the outer world, so to speak. The next thing that spring equinox bring is rebirth and renewal. Again, coming back to nature starting to bloom, but also from like a personal perspective is this equinox invites personal renewal, right? So it's really a time to shed that winter skin, quote unquote, whatever we want that to mean. In this sense, we can look at it like limiting beliefs, habits, like what are those negative habits or what are those habits and beliefs that no longer serve you, right? How can we remove those, shed those so that we can walk in to spring with a different sense of belonging, a different sense of feeling, a different sense of looking at the world. It's also a really good time to embrace new opportunities. So that's sort of that like a rebirth aspect of like, when you're born, it's a totally new environment. So being open to embracing new opportunities, very much like, we plant seeds for future growth. Like this is a really good time to plant seeds for the harvest, which often the harvest comes in October, September, October. It's when a lot of people also have energy, right? It's the back to school season, quote unquote. It's when people come back from, summers. Maybe summer was a little bit less active. Like in corporate, summers weren't always as active. Like we still had work and stuff, but it wasn't always like, that crazy. And so it really is that aspect. I talk to my clients a lot about this because I have a lot of career coaching clients and we talk about job searching, right? And like September is usually a time when there's a lot of open jobs, right? It's just the vibes of coming back in the fall weather. So now is the time to plant the seeds that will then blossom and that you can harvest in that end of summer, fall time, which I think is really, really amazing. The next thing that spring equinox brings is awakening and transformation, right? Like just from a physical standpoint, we have more sunlight. So we're going to be quote unquote awake, right? More, both physically, both from a spiritual perspective. We want to stay up later. We want to do more. We have more energy for activities, right? We're literally awakening our senses, smelling the flowers, the grass, like all of those things. You may start to feel more energized. I cannot tell you the amount of energy I had this week was actually insane. Like, yes, I'm on the phase of my cycle, which is like the most energy, my follicular phase, but I've had so much energy, creative energy in my work. I've been doing things this week that I've been putting off for the last 2 months because I just didn't have the capacity energy wise to deal with it. And now I'm like, let's get it done. Let's go. I'm super excited. You may feel more inspired and you may also feel ready to pursue those personal and creative endeavors. Now's a really good time to do creative things as well. What are those personal goals that you have? Again, we're planting the seeds for later on right now. The next thing that spring equinox can bring is fertility and creation. And like, yes, fertility in like the actual sense of fertility, but it's like more about what's going to be, coming in conception. Again, this is planting those seeds, right? That's what fertility is. And then the birth is like harvesting in the fall, right? And abundance. So now's a really good time again to start new things, set goals, set intentions, embrace personal growth. I talk about this a lot when I do New Year's goals in January. I tell people, listen, you can absolutely do New Year's goals now if you feel like it. Some people do. Some people like that New Year's energy. That's amazing. But not everyone does. And that is absolutely a-okay. And if you don't feel that New Year's energy in January, that's totally fine. Now is the time to do that. That's why I started this episode with Happy New Year, because it really is the new year in that sense, in a many senses. Okay. So it's really about that abundance, setting those intentions. Another way that spring equinox is important from a spiritual perspective is the connection to nature. So we obviously kind of already touched on this to some degree, but it's really a time especially from like a spiritual perspective where you're encouraged to connect with nature, to connect with earth. And again, when it's winter time, you can't really go out and like be around the trees and touch the grass and whatever. Like there's no leaves, like it's cold outside, the grass is doing whatever it's doing, being brown, like that's not the vibe, right? But spring is a time, like literally today I was walking home from Pilates and I was just like, oh my God, like there's flowers everywhere. It's starting to bloom, like pinks and purples and greens. There was some tulips on the side by our apartment building. There's like some grass and stuff. And I was like staring at it. It looked just so amazing. And I was just so happy. It put me in such a positive mood. And it was just like, so nice. So, these are the ways kind of that spring equinox can bring that renewal. And then in a sec, we'll talk about like how you can use this energy. But as I mentioned, like I've been feeling so down the last like 2.5 months, really since after Christmas, which happens to me every year. Like fall's fine. And like, the holidays I'm super excited about. And then basically from like January 2nd to like basically when we change the time, which this year it's super late in Europe that we're changing the time, I am sad. I feel a little depressed. I'm sad. I don't have energy for things. And it was hard for me. I'm not going to lie. I did have a hard time the last 2.5 months. It was quite irritable. I was also dealing with some personal things as well, like anniversaries of, sad things for me and things like that. So that was, kind of all happening, and I just didn't feel this spark. I didn't feel this zest for life, this like zest for creativity, and it did make me sad. And I realize now that again, like it's just a season, and when you're in it, it's hard to tell yourself like it's just a season, you'll get over this, whatever. Like it's so hard to say that to yourself, right? But it is something good to remind yourself. And it's okay to have those quote unquote internal winters. I always talk about that. I had an internal winter. Right now I'm having such a spring. I'm like full force ahead, like go, go, go. And I'm absolutely loving it. So with that said, let's talk about how you can actually use the spring equinox to your advantage. We've touched on some of these, but I want to be super specific so that you can take some goals and you can use these to have a really successful and happy spring. So the first thing to do is set intentions, which we've mentioned, but this is where you're going to write down goals or affirmations for the coming months. So questions to ask yourself: what do you want to accomplish? What goals do you have? What positivity and intentions do you want to set? This is a great time to do a vision board. I literally just did mine last weekend. I did a whole new vision board. I always tell y'all, I do my vision boards from April to October, October to April, because for me, that's what works in terms of like a vibe, right? Like this is my time when I have the most energy from April to October. I'm excited, positivity, and I like doing it. And then from October to April, in sort of those like end of fall, winter months, I have a different vibe. And so I have a different set of goals then. So I'm just loving this. I love my new vision board. It's super fun. And I definitely recommend doing one at this time of year. Even if you did one in January, you can still redo it. Like it's been 3 months. Like you can do one every quarter if you want it. There are no rules. The next thing to do, and this is where the term spring cleaning comes from, is cleanse and declutter. Okay. So just like nature is clearing away all the old things, it's making space for the new things, right? All the beautiful flowers, all the plants. Spring cleaning can create like a really sense of fresh energy in your home, in your life, in your mind, on your phone, like all the things, right? So clean your closet. Great time to clean your closet. Clean your windows. I know your windows need a cleaning. So do mine. So I'm going to be on it. Clean your desk. Clean your phone, the apps on your phone. Delete old photos. Clear your browsers, right? Like do little things that are actually going to make you feel better, because cleaning really brings that sense of renewal that we talked about and transformation. And this is a really great time to start cleaning things. The next thing to do is spend time in nature. And like, you don't need to be like a super nature person. I'm not one either, but I do like being outside. Even if you're like sitting outside, having a cocktail, like that counts. that counts, okay? You don't have to go on like a 20-mile hike, okay? Hot girl walks are back. I'm so excited to finally go on hot girl walks, especially like later in the afternoon, because like I don't always have time like during the day when I'm working and stuff, or I don't want to spend time on walking during the day when it's like my prime energy of working. So I'm so excited that now it's going to be better weather and the sun's up longer, so I can actually go out and walk at like 5 or 6 p.m. because that's when I do like to walk. I don't feel safe otherwise, like at night, like, you know, going to walk. So this is going to be really great. Put your feet in grass or sand. By the time you're listening to this episode, I will hopefully be in a warm place for the week, and my behind, my feet, all the things will be in sand, will be in water. I literally am so excited. If you're into hikes, go on hikes, be in nature. Do all the things. Open your windows, even just opening the windows and feeling the breeze. If you have a balcony, sit outside. If you have a backyard, sit outside. Like, those are all things that can really bring that energy. The next thing you can do is light a candle. So again, if you're more spiritual or you want to tap into this, is lighting a candle really symbolizes the return of the sun's strengths and the illumination of new possibilities. Okay, so this is the time to do the witchy things, right? Take out your crystals, do the candles, manifest, all of those things. This is the time to do it. And then the last thing you can do is practice gratitude. So whenever we finish a season and start a new season, it's always a really good time to practice gratitude. So this is the time to reflect on what you're grateful for and celebrate all the abundance in your life. It's really going to help you move into this next phase more positively. So reflect on the last season, what worked, what didn't work. Like, I'm trying to tell myself, okay, my body rested, it needed to recuperate, I was dealing with some things, you know, health issues, all the things. And now my body is feeling good and we can move on and go to this next phase. And I'm so happy I had this time to rest, right? So we can look at it that way. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I love talking about all these spiritual witchy things, and I'm so excited for spring. I hope you are as well. I'm sending you all the positive spring energy. Keep me updated on Instagram as well in the DMs. I'm always chatting with y'all about how it's going and, you know, what you're feeling, and you can send me your goals as well. I'd love to hear them. And if you love this episode, please give me a 5-star review, or rather the podcast a 5-star review. It really helps to promote the podcast. I hope y'all have an amazing week. Happy almost April. Yay for us April girlies, Aries girlies. And I'll catch you in the next episode.